Hello and welcome to this week's Racing Bet preview for all the horse racing action in Australia on Saturday, May the 8th. Headlined by the second week of the South Australian Racing Carnival at Morphettville, which we have the South Australian Derby taking place on that card. Also got plenty of feature racing right around the country. We've got the Hollandale Stakes meeting at the Gold Coast. We've also got the Gold Coast Cup on that card. We've got the Coast, the $500,000 race at Gosford, as racing in New South Wales heads out to Gosford this weekend. There's plenty happening. I'm your host, Tim Geers, joined by Trent Crebbin. This week's episode is brought to you by PlayUp, your best bet. We're here to take you through all the winners in the weekend's action. Trent, how are you going? You're looking forward to the second week of the SA Carnival?
Yeah, I am. It's been a grueling few days doing every race at the Bull there. I can only imagine what it would have been like on track. So I'm good to get away from there now and move on back to South Australia. The SA Derby looks a really deep contest this year. Of course, won last year by a Russian Camelot. Not sure there's any stars like that this year, but it's a good race and a good card.
Yeah, huge effort by you to get through all 3 days of the Bull. 30 races over the course of 3 days. Every single race previewed up on the RacingBet site. So a round of applause for yourself there. You found a few winners amongst the lot. How did you come out at the end of the carnival?
We got up day one. Day two, copped a couple of sick beats. I think we just went down day two, but I think we probably should have gotten up, if I'm being honest. And day three was a little bit tougher, although we did find wishful thinking at around $8.50. So that was a good effort, but I think probably slightly down with a bit of mixed luck.
I don't think, well, other than probably the Flemington Carnival over, the spring, there's probably no harder carnival to find winners than the Warrnambool Carnival, I reckon. The 4 days at Flemington in the spring are notoriously hard when you've got about 20 horses flying down the straight. They're always hard to pick the winners. But the Bull, you just have so many horses set for the Bull every single day, basically on a heavy track. You've got an unknown track condition. You don't know how the track's going to play. They can tend to throw up results from all corners. So, yeah, well done there. Looking forward to moving on to a bit higher quality racing this weekend. You'll have the meeting at Morphettville covered. I'll be covering the Gosford meeting as well as Ascot here in WA. We'll leave the Brisbane Winter Carnival for another week, or at least until their Group 1 features get underway. We might preview the Hollandale. We'll just see how we go. But we will be highlighting one race at the Gold Coast, which I'm keen on this weekend, and we'll get to that shortly. We'll take you through our best bets at the Gold Coast, Gosford and Morphettville, and then we'll get into the Group 1 South Australian Derby and take you through our thoughts on this weekend's feature race. Trent, we might kick off with your best bet at Morphettville. And we'll start there, and then we'll get to the Gold Coast and Gosford before we return back to you for the Group 1 SA Derby. This is a horse which is firmly on your list of boyfriends. Race 8, number 1, Cherry Tortoni, currently even money with PlayUp. You're giving this boy one more chance.
I am, and he's one of those hateful boyfriends I don't actually ever think I've got to collect out of him, which is the problem. But he comes here off 4 weeks. He ran last start in the Tulloch up in Sydney, and I thought he was very good there. He ran fifth there, beaten about a length and a half on a day that you had to be glued to the rail and up on the fence. Yaletown got the biggest perfect run there on the fence and walked in. I thought his effort was very good there. The start prior in the Alistair Clark, again, he just had no hope given the bias that day on All-Star Mile Day. It was a very wet track, and Grand Slam just walked in. He was still only finishing, alongside the likes of Explosive Jack and Young Werther, who have since come out in Quinella the Derby. So I think the form was looking quite strong, and I think the drop back to 1,600 metres might actually suit him. We saw in the Australian Guineas, he was enormous, just getting too far back from a wide gate here. And you just look at this race, it's just such an easy race compared to what he's been contesting. He gets in at set weights. And, you just look at the horses he's coming up against, like Agreeable, Way to Go, Polar are both well in the market. And I just think he's got lengths on those at his best. So, if he's anywhere near his best, he'll go straight past these. It's just whether, whether he is or completely shows it up or, turns in a bit of a stinker again. But yeah, if he's at his best, I think he just wins this.
I love the fact that you start your explanation with, I don't think I've ever got to collect out of this horse, but he's firmly on my list of boyfriends and I'm going to launch at the $2. It's fantastic stuff. Let's hope this weekend is the weekend for Cherry Tortoni. Race 8, number 1 at Morphettville, Trent's best bet this weekend. You might think Cherry Tortoni is the best weighted horse this weekend, but I've got a rival for you. We'll head over to the Gold Coast where I'm going to highlight one race that I'm keen on. I've looked through all 9, but I basically kept coming back to this race. I wouldn't necessarily say it's my best bet, but this is a horse that I'm really keen to back each way this weekend. I do think it's the best each way bet on the card. This is race number 7, the Gold Coast Guineas. And I think horse number 1, Amish Boy, I must be missing something here because I can't believe this horse is $9.50. 2 starts ago, this horse ran third in a Group 1 Newmarket handicap down the straight at Flemington behind Zutorian and Indian Pacific. Last start, he went to Sydney in the Arrowfield. He was beaten 2.5 lengths by the likes of Wild Ruler and Isotope. He now drops back to a Group 3 against his own age, which he contested last start in Group 2 against his own age, but he drops back to a Group 3 here. I just can't work out why he's $9.50. What else is in this race? If you go back through the field, this is who he's coming up against. Rocketing By, Simply Fly, Lord Olympus, Immortal Love, Tremonto, Master Red, Garoppolo, Kisakanu, Marbusha, Fleet Dove, and the Actuary. A whole host of those horses have Queensland form and not even listed or group Queensland form. Lord Olympus got the best run you'll ever see and the best ride you'll ever see to win a listed race in Queensland last start. Rocketing By is the horse that, can boast some claims as to having a decent amount of class. But if the real Amish Boy shows up in this race, I think he just wins this. The main concern for me is obviously the heavy ground at the Gold Coast. He's had 3 starts on soft ground for 2 minor placings, but he's never won on a rain-affected track so far. But if he was to repeat the performance of the Newmarket 2 starts ago, I'm sure he'd win this race. What will help, barrier 14 does look a little bit tricky, but if we're playing on heavy ground at the Gold Coast, barrier 14 this late in the day could actually be a blessing in disguise. They could end up gravitating towards the outside rail, which is only going to suit this horse. Giant McNeil jumps on for the Kieran Maher and David Eustace stable. They're, of course, flying. And as I said, I just can't work out why this horse is $9.50, bringing the form that he does to this race. I think this is the easiest race he's faced in a long time. Yes, he's only had the 1 win from 13 career starts, but he's always around the mark. The more I look at this race and the more I look at this horse, the keener I get. And I think $9.50 is a terrific each way bet. Race 7, number 1, Amish Boy at the Gold Coast. We'll move on to the Gosford meeting. As I said, headlined by the $500,000 The Coast. Might be a little bit confusing. We're moving from the Gold Coast to Gosford, and the main race is the Coast. There's 2 races I'm going to preview on this meeting at Gosford. We'll start with my best bet of the card. We're going to have to wait to the lucky last because I think this horse is the best bet on the card. Race 9, number 1, April Rain, Chris Waller and Tommy Berry. There are a few little queries here, those being first up on a heavy track with 60 kilos. But look, I think this 4-year-old mare is just better than the rest of her opposition. She had 3 starts last preparation for 3 dominant wins or 3 impressive wins. And I remember Waller putting her away after the last of those and saying, we'll bring her back for basically the better races in the autumn. She's missed the autumn carnival, but she does resume for the winter here. This is a nice kickoff point for her. As I said, it's a decent race, a benchmark 78 in the fillies and mares. She does take on a couple of decent horses, but I think she's got a class edge on the rest of her rivals here. First up with the weight, it's some concern, but I think if she returns at her best and what she demonstrated last campaign, I think she's going to be too good here. She's already been well backed, 230 with PlayUp's about the best you're going to get. But if she turns up, I think she's going to win this on her way to bigger and better things over the Queensland Winter Carnival. That's race number 9, horse number 1, April Rain. Trent, I believe you got a decent price about April Rain. You in my corner there?
Yeah, I think she's going to be pretty hard to beat here. I've got a pretty high opinion of April Rain as well. She seems to handle all conditions, and she just looks very progressive. And I think she probably will be winning this and probably pick off a nice race this winter.
The next race I'll preview at Gosford is race number 6 on the card. This is one of the features of the day, the listed Takeover target stakes over 1,200 metres. I can't really work out why number 2, Easy Eddie, is the favourite here. I'm pretty keen to bet around him, and I'm going to be backing 2 horses to beat him, one more so than the other. I'm pretty keen on the chances of number 4, Enchanted Heart here for Chris Lees and Jason Collett. This horse resumed with a first up win over Lost and Running at Canterbury. We then saw Lost and Running come out a week or 2 ago at Randwick and absolutely bolt in. He looks a very, very good horse on his way to better races over the Queensland Carnival. Enchanted Heart, he was then a little bit disappointing in that same race behind Lost and Running at Randwick. But if you look at his second up record, it's not as good as his third up record. So I'm going to forgive him for that race, for that poor run second up. And I'm going to back the fact that he might peak here third up from a spell. He's had 3 runs third up for 3 victories. He's had 4 starts on a heavy track for 3 wins. So clearly he's going to get conditions to suit here. And if he peaks third up from a spell here on rain-affected ground, I think he'll be going very close to winning this race. The other horse I'm interested in is the top weight number 1, Signore Fox. Of course, this horse won first up in the Star Kingdom Stakes at Rose Hill. He was then a little bit disappointing last start, but he's got a very good first up record, but he always tends to race flat second up from a spell. I think he's won 3 from 6 first up, but he's only got the 1 placing from 6 starts when second up from a spell. He does tend to bounce out of those second up, those flat runs second up, because he's had 5 starts, third up for 2 wins and a second placing. So I'm tipping that he's just going to race flat second up and then bounce back and peak third up from a spell here. He's had 1 start on a heavy track for 1 second placing. So whether or not he's at his best on heavy ground remains to be seen, but he's at least run reasonably well on a heavy track before. He's got a terrific record at the distance, 17 starts for 6 wins. Tommy Berry booked to ride. And I thought he was a very good chance of bouncing back from that last start defeat. So going to take on the favourite, Easy Eddie here. Going to be backing Enchanted Heart currently around $3.90 and having something also in Signore Fox at around $3.50, $3.60. All right, that's me done for the Gold Coast and Gosford. Trent, we'll get back over to Morphettville to preview the Group 1 South Australian Derby, which also happens to be your best value bet on the card at Morphettville on Saturday. You're with 2 horses predominantly here. Horses number 4, Let's Crack a Deal, and horse number 6, Deep Strike. I think Deep Strike, we're getting $8 with PlayUp. Let's Crack a Deal, $12 with PlayUp. Take us through your thoughts there in the Derby.
Yeah, I thought both Deep Strike and Let's Crack a Deal were good value here. Both come through a couple of SA lead-ups. Deep Strike comes through the Chairman's over 2,040 metres last start. He was off the map that day as well. They kept backing him. He started $2.70. And he probably should have won, or definitely should have won, I would say. He was beaten 3 lengths, but he just never got clear air. If you go back and watch the replay, it's sick.
I don't want to go back and watch the replay.
I'll
put it up anyway so everyone can watch.
Yeah, it's completely under a hold. He goes to the line. Only beaten 3 lengths there. I like the fact Lane takes over from D here, so it's probably a better jockey on board. No knock on D, but Lane is absolutely flying. I think he's really going to appreciate getting up to 2,500 here. He looks like a real out-and-out stayer. The win 2 back at Sandown was very good coming from back in the field. Really liked that win. I think he gets a decent map here from barrier 9. He can just kind of blend into the race, midfield or just worse. And I think he's a really good chance here. Let's Crack a Deal. Bit of an interesting one as well. He comes through the Port Adelaide Guineas over 1,800 metres there. He went back in the field from a wide gate. And I thought he ran on really well. I especially loved his last 100 metres and worked through the line. He really just kind of charged through the line. I think the winner there, Royal Mile, just got a better ride, just kind of saved ground up along the fence. Royal Mile has since come out and won that Chairman's Stakes as well. So he's flying and there's probably no knock there. Let's Crack a Deal. Yeah, gets up in trip as well, which I like for the Mar Eustace stable. He also gets blinkers on first time. So it looks like a real set play they've done for him here as well. And he wasn't beaten far when he stepped up to the trip in the Victoria Derby either. So I think he's a good chance as well. It's an open race, but I thought they were the 2 that I could potentially play at the odds.
Yeah, I'm firmly in your corner there. I thought those 2 horses were the 2 that I'd want to be backing as well. Deep Strike, for all the reasons you just mentioned, probably should have won the Chairman's Stakes last start. That's been a good form line for this race in previous years. I think when Darren Weir was training, he won this race 3 times in a row with horses coming out of the Chairman's Stakes leading up to the Derby. So I'm firmly in your corner there. And also, Let's Crack a Deal. Yeah, love. Third up, blinkers go on. Huge run last start in the Port Adelaide Guineas. Whether that's the right form line, I'm not sure. Barrier 15 is a little bit tricky, but looks a very good setup job here from the Mar Eustace stable. $14 or thereabouts, more than acceptable. Royal Mile, take us through your thoughts there. I'm also going to be having something on this horse at $12. He's done nothing really to suggest that he can't run well again here. He's had 8 starts with 5 wins and 3 second placings. He's won his last 4 in a row. He won the Chairman's last start. Draws a good barrier. Should get a nice run up there. I thought double figure odds was acceptable for him as well.
Yeah, he is absolutely flying. He won the Port Adelaide Guineas over Let's Crack a Deal as well, 2 back. Like I said, I think he got a better run there. But yeah, he's really hard to knock here. Draws barrier 2. Opperman seems to get along with him really well, and he probably maps just behind the speed or even potentially leading. I think 2,500 is maybe the slight query with him. He's got to take that next step. He doesn't really profile, and I think the stable have come out and said they're not really sure if he's going to run the trip. But yeah, like I said, he's going to put himself on speed, and he's hard to knock, seeing as he's won both lead-ups.
Take us through your thoughts on Explosive Jack. I thought he was probably short enough here around $3. I probably know this horse a touch better than you do from his last start. Of course, he was the last start winner of the Group 1 Australian Derby at Randwick over 2,400 metres. These Mar Eustace stayers in particular just keep turning up and keep running well, no matter how deep they are into a preparation. But I suppose the form out of that Australian Derby is somewhat suspect. He beat Young Werther and Lions Roar. I think Montefilia was back in fourth. You had Quay behind them. Nothing out of that race so far has really come out and franked that form. So I'd be a little bit suspect on that form in particular. I find it hard to get him as short as $3 here.
Yeah, I kind of agreed. I can understand why he is that short, because he's kind of coming off the best form line on paper. But yeah, like you said, I think the form out of that race has been a bit questionable. Like Lions Roar and Quay both went quite poorly in the Frank Packer plate after that. And there's a few others. Favreau came out and was, beaten on his merits in the St. Ledger by Through Irish Eyes, which ties a few of these in here as well. Myron Eustace can keep them going, can keep them ticking along really well, but he's got to kind of maintain that peak again. Probably going to get back in the field. And I thought $3 was short enough. I don't think there's really much between the Australian Derby form and some of this other lead up form. I think it's a pretty even kind of staying bunch. And I thought he was, short enough at $3.
Okay. The filly in the race, Personal. You know her very well, of course. She was a little bit disappointing in the Vinery Stud Stakes 2 starts ago in Sydney, but bounced back with a huge run in the Australasian Oaks last start, beaten half a length by Media Award. Comes into the Derby on the 1 week backup. I think they did this with Kafila, the same stable, a few years ago, and they won the Derby with her. Can she repeat the dose?
Yeah, they did do that with Kafila a few years ago. Yeah, look, she's the one I'm kind of scared of, and I think she's going to be the one that's you've already seen the early market. I think the market's going to keep coming for her on the backup. And the key thing to note with her as well is that when she won the VRC Oaks over 2,500 meters, it was on the 1 week backup after a kind of similar run, getting back and hitting the line. Whether that Oaks is kind of the best form, like Media Award was a long price and was coming off some kind of midweek form, and a couple of the favorites didn't really show up. So I'm not really sure if that's the best form, but she just has the right profile to run a big race here. So I'm probably not going to be backing her at the price. I think she's about her right price, but she's the one I'm kind of scared of. I think she could really elevate off that run in the Oaks.
Okay, and final comment on Liquiro. I suppose we should touch on him. He's a $5.50 chance here.
Yeah, no real knock on him. Did beat Explosive Jack 2 back, although Explosive Jack had to carry, I think, 4 kilos more and had to come from basically last. Liquiro got every favour there. Last start, I thought he was solid on speed, but nothing really that screamed it. Wanted to back him in the Derby. So I thought he was probably another one that you could just look to take on. But yeah, no real knock again.
Okay, so to sum up in the South Australian Derby, it sounds like me and Trent are pretty well on the same page. I'll be having something on number 2, Royal Mile, as well as number 4, Let's Crack a Deal, and number 6, Deep Strike. The prices for those three with playup.com.au. Deep Strike finds himself at $7.50. Royal Mile is an $11 chance, and Let's Crack a Deal also $11. I think we potentially will get better prices, maybe closer to the race. Trent, any final comments on the Group 1?
No, it's a nice deep race, and yeah, hopefully one of those gets the right one and we get the cash there at the nice price.
Okay, that'll do us for this weekend's preview. We'll have all of the races covered from Sydney, Melbourne, Perth and Adelaide on RacingBet.com.au. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for those on our socials and on the website. Hopefully find you a few winners, and we'll look forward to doing it all again next week.